Okay, so I'm making some changes to the FJ. What I'm doing is I'm putting a brake controller on here right now. The reason for that is I decided I'm going to get an off-road trailer. I'm still going to use the rooftop tent setup, but for certain trips, we're going to take the camper instead. The FJs don't have a brake controller built into them. These aren't the best tow vehicle in the world. I'm just going to make do. So of course I started researching brake controllers, and the coolest one on the market, which I'm not surprised by, are the Redarc systems. Now, this is the base unit for the Redarc Tow Pro Elite, and this is the version 3. This is brand new. This just came out in January of 2021. I'm going to put the Redarc system in, and I'm going to try it out. And it seems like the best move for anybody who has a build like this is the reason I'm sharing this information. With the traditional brake controllers, they have the little pincher things on it where you squeeze it and it'll apply the brakes to a certain extent, and it'll help straighten the trailer out if you pass a semi or something like that. Now the difference with the Redarc system is you don't see this. This is behind the dash. This is non-existent, so you don't have to mount it underneath where you can get to it really quick. What you mount is this little switch. This is the only thing that has to stick out of the dash. This piece is extra. This is going to fit one of the FJ toggle switches. I'm still debating on if I'm actually going to use this or if I'm going to mount it straight to the dash here. There's different mounting options for different vehicles. It came with a universal one. This is specific for the FJ and the same model year Toyotas. What's special about this brake controller is it has 2 different modes. One of the modes is designed for just highway use. It's like a normal brake controller. In the normal highway mode, mode 1, the traditional mode we'll call it, whenever you're on the highway and you slow down, this has sensors in it that sees the vehicle slowing down, just like a regular old brake controller. So it's going to apply the brakes on the trailer accordingly. There's a secondary mode with this. So in the secondary mode, the way it changes is instead of sensing inertia from the vehicle slowing down to apply the brakes, it allows you to choose anywhere on the dial where you're giving it different amounts of brake pressure. You can adjust that. And when it activates is with the brake lights rather than the inertia of the vehicle. Whatever this is dialed to, that's how much braking is applied. So you can slow the trailer down independently of the vehicle. I don't know how I'm going to like having a trailer. So if this is going to make that much easier, I want it. So if you're passing like a semi and your trailer starts to sway, all you have to do is you have to press this button down and it will lightly apply the brakes. The software does it for you. It's not going to just lock them up. So this is the Redarc control module. This has everything inside of it that basically is the brains of the system. Pretty much what happens is when you install this in your vehicle, however you install it, you go for a couple drives, and then when you hit the brakes a few times, it'll get to know your vehicle. So you have to mount this. You have to hard mount this. You can't zip tie it to something. You can't leave it hanging. It has to be hard mounted so it knows when the vehicle is braking. It came with the actual control unit, the switch. I got the mounting kit for the Tow Pro. I don't know if I'm actually going to need it. Gives you a few more options on how to mount the thing. I got their circuit breaker kit along with this. With the circuit breaker, it actually comes with a fair amount of wire to wire this thing. I was looking at it at first and I was like, I think I'm gonna have to extend that. Pretty sure I won't have to. This should be enough. And it has one lead that goes to your battery, one lead that goes to the actual brake controller, and then you run the one back to your 7-way plug, of course. I personally think after using Redarc for my battery system that I have another video on, it works so well. I think Redarc's probably one of the best ones that I've worked with, and I've worked with fleets of trucks and different brands of things for years now, and Redarc's really impressive in my opinion. So using this brake controller is super simple. You don't have a lot clogging up your dash, which is pretty nice. They make switch panels that'll fit into pretty much any vehicle. The main mode is Inertia Sensing. Basically, it applies the right amount of brakes at the right time, and you can control that from 0 to 10. There's fine adjustments in there in between each number. So if you have a heavier trailer that needs to brake more, then you can adjust that accordingly. What I found towing this back from Kansas is 4.5 is ideal for me, and so now I know that's where it needs to be set at, and I'll fine tune it every time I drive it. On this wheel, you have a fine adjustment of 0 to 10. So 10 is maximum braking, and 0 is, of course, less braking. If your trailer starts to sway, you just press down and it turns purple, and that's applying your brake. Simple as that. It'll apply your brake behind you. If it's applying a light amount of brake, then it'll barely light up. But if it's applying a lot of brake, it'll turn completely red. If you want to use the secondary function off-roading, what you got to do is you got to pull over, put your foot on the brake, turn it to 0, and double tap it. As soon as it turns green, you're in off-road mode. So now the way this works in off-road mode is if you turn this up and you apply just enough to where your brake lights are on, it's going to brake for you, so you can essentially walk your trailer down something while your engine is engine braking. And whatever setting you have, that's how much brake force is applied. The secondary mode's also useful for if you drive on sand. So when we finally do our trip down to Baja, what I will do is I will turn this down really low to like 2. So if I'm driving on the sand and I have to lock up the brakes for some reason, or there's just some sort of a whoop that I didn't see coming, I can hit the brakes accordingly and it'll slow the vehicle down fast, but it won't necessarily dig the trailer's tires into the sand because it's not locking up the same way that the FJ would be. So there's little things like that for off-roading that makes a huge difference, and I think that's a big benefit to getting the Redarc system. Installing this thing was really easy. The hardest part for me, because I have so many electronics in this, was just finding a place to put the actual module, the bigger part, and I actually put it underneath where the console is, and I found a place to mount it under that. So it's completely out of the way, but that was the hardest part. Aside from that, it was just running a couple wires. It was really simple. So pull over, turn it to 0, double tap. I'm back on highway mode, turns blue, and then I would just turn it back up to my setting of about 4.5, and I'm good to go. And then that's all there is to it. In the next video, I'll go over the off-road features of this thing. I just got to wait for a little bit of the snow to melt to where I can actually do that. So bear with me, but this brake controller is really cool, really out of the way, and really easy to use. So I'll be updating in the future in the next couple months of how this thing's going and what all I've learned from it. So anyway, until part 2.